There are countless foreign nationals in our country. And, they've admitted, by the way, that they're here for nefarious reasons. Not all of them. There's a lot of them who are there just trying to make a better life. But millions are gotaways who are sneaking past the Border Patrol to cause problems. And understand, this is not going to be in some kind of far-off land or something you see on TV. This is going to be on your streets, at your home. And you have to be ready for this because it is coming. And you know what? We can talk about stockpiling food and water all day long, ways to cook. But no, we're going to talk about 7 things to stockpile now and be ready for this invasion that's happening right now. Number 1, medical supplies. You cannot depend on an ambulance or even hospitals. They're at the very least going to be overrun, possibly if the grid goes down, not even available for you. So you need to be prepared, medically speaking. And at the very least, have antibiotics. Amoxicillin, penicillin, Cipro, doxycycline. There's so many of them for that. You can go to Jase Medical possibly, or even talk to your physician. Sometimes you'll have a physician that'll allow you to get prescriptions ahead of time. Painkillers, prescription medications, obviously something you could talk to your doctor about as well. But you need to have lots of medical supplies, from bandages, ACE wraps, Israeli dressings, tourniquets, so many things with that. I'm going to link after this a video to watch of some of the medical supplies you probably want to go ahead and keep on hand. But also on the same note, if you look at the link below, you can go to our store and buy just a medical checklist for a couple bucks to be able to go through all kinds of different types of medical supplies you should get. But think about all the medical supplies, stuff that you might want to have, basic stuff that we take for granted, like cough suppressants, antidiarrheals, antihistamines, Tylenol, ibuprofen, the list goes on and on. Number 2, communication. We're going to spend a moment here because there's so many different things in communications we need to consider. First is simply just getting news from the outside world. And that's why I recommend having a solar crank radio. Now this one, I have so many different ones, by the way. This is now by far my favorite. American Reserves is one of our sponsors. I'll link this below. This crank radio takes it to a whole new level because it's not simply just listening to the news and weather, all that's on here too. This actually has stereo radio to calm down, listen to some music, etc. Of course, it has the crank on it, has a solar panel on it, has a lot of different options, and this thing works amazingly well. So make sure you have a crank radio to be able to keep up with all the different types of news and stuff. Lots of information you need to know as far as the outside world goes. Now, you may need to be able to communicate with your family too, and I would, at first, at the very least, recommend just simply having some walkie-talkies. Now, for us, we have a whole bunch of these little Cobras. They are rechargeable. They actually go into a base. I'll link this below. But these things are great. In fact, we have so many of these in our house, and we keep them linked up, with the chargers, so that way if the kids go out on our property, they can grab a radio and off they go to be able to communicate. But of course, communication through walkie-talkie, even though it works well, is kind of limited. It doesn't go really far. So you may want to consider possibly getting some ham radios. Now, these are Baofeng Ham Radios. I actually bought these as a set as well. You'd be amazed at how inexpensive these things really are. Same thing, these fit into a base, keep recharged, and I would always have these available so that way if something happens. Now, understand, you do have to get a license to use these, but not in emergencies, by the way. In emergencies, you can just go ahead and use them anyway. Besides, if you're just radioing home during an emergency and say, hey, come meet me, whatever, obviously nobody's going to be coming around. Again, they're going to be so inundated with problems as it is. So you want to make sure you go ahead and do this. As far as the radio goes, it's important to do it anyways because it gives you a better understanding how the radio works. So lots of different things go on with this. Maybe even as a family, you can get a license together to understand it. But lots of different types of radios, ham radios, walkie-talkies, solar crank radio. Communication is vital, especially during these difficult times. Number 3, weapons. Oh, yes, YouTube loves it when I talk about weapons. We can talk about handheld weapons, Kubatons, pepper spray, lots of things. But I'll be honest with you, having a firearm and a good knife too is honestly, I think there's no substitution for that. YouTube doesn't like this, so I'm actually looking at starting a channel possibly on Patreon where I can actually go through different types of weapons because YouTube, even if they allow it, you know how YouTube is. Anyways, I would recommend getting a shotgun. That's always a good thing. If you don't know how to shoot very well, and that's probably a good house weapon to have, a 12-gauge shotgun. There's so many options too. Handguns take more aim. Ammo's more expensive. Shotguns, aim's doesn't have to be so good. And it can be lethal, by the way, in short distances, even with birdshot. A lot of people don't realize that. They think birdshot won't do anything. It will. But at the very least, keep the people away. Now, you can't just buy a firearm or a good knife and say, I'm good to go. That's not even close. You will suffer. You need to train and drill and practice and train and drill and practice and be able to become a master at that firearm. And don't be one of those people who buys like every firearm known to mankind. Buy 1 or 2 different variations, like maybe a handgun and a shotgun, And you practice with those two only, and keep going. And then, of course, how good is a firearm without ammo? You need to stock up on ammo for those guns so you're ready to go to be able to protect you and your family. Listen, this is not going to be a walk in the park. If we're talking about coming to your home, a lot of these nationals and stuff, you need to be able to protect yourself. Number 4, a bug up bag or get home bag. I've already made some videos about these kind of things. This is one of my get home bags I keep in the car. I don't know if you can see it, but of course there's kids glitter on it because it sits in my car, especially if we take some short trips. Essential items, and I'm going to go through some of these essential items too, probably in the next week or so. But obviously you can get some basic supplies to start a fire, even freeze-dried food. Again, American Reserves works very well for that. Have your weapons, parka, other essentials in here. I'm even going to make a checklist of things you want to keep in your get-home bag at the very least, and not to mention medical stuff. Now, having a bug-out bag is equally important. It has different items into it. A lot of people say, you know what, things happen, I'm never going to bug out. You will if your house is about to burn down. You know, that's basically what you're looking at if your life's in danger. But at the least, having a get-home bag, even if you're going to the grocery store, has items you need to be able to take care of business to get home where your castle is to be prepared. Number 5, navigational aids. Now, we can't rely on GPS. We want to. I mean, if you have a GPS, dedicated GPS for your car, it uses the satellites. Those satellites are owned by the military. And depending on the situation, they may be hacked, cyber attacked, and they may simply be down. And your phone uses cell phone towers. But understand cell phone towers. You need to realize that cell phones may not be working in those situations. That's the whole reason why I have walkie-talkies and stuff. Because if the grid goes down, forget it. But in emergencies too, they will shut off so you can't actually call or text anybody because we must keep it open for emergency services. So having your own navigational aids, not depending on any GPS, is the way to go. Cell towers will not be your friend. Long story short, have a decent little compass. I've got a couple of them I can link below. And not to mention maps. And there's 2 kinds, by the way. I have like topographical maps, which are fantastic. Or you can simply just go to your local visitors bureau and get maps of your area for free. I have both, and lots of both. For that reason, I keep them in my get-home bag. I keep them in my stash, whatever I need. So that way you basically know where you're going. Now, if you're going to go somewhere, have a meetup location for you and your family. If it's not at your home, for example, you want to make sure that you're able to go to places and be able to keep safe together. So lots of maps, navigational aids. And now that the weather's turning warmer outside, I'm excited. I'm going to go through a video or 2 talking about the easiest way to use compasses. It's really easy if you know what you're doing, because if not, it can steer you in the wrong direction, literally. Number 6, a solar generator. Disruptions in electricity and power is very likely. Could be a full grid down. It could simply be a disruption, and you want to be ready. I mean, listen, at the very least, you don't necessarily have to have lights on or your computer watching Netflix, but your fridge and freezer, at the very least, keeping your preps going so that way all that food doesn't spoil. Because, of course, food and water is one of the number of things you want to be able to keep around, and if your fridge dies, freezer dies, uh-oh. So lots to choose from. I'm maybe going to talk about some other ones coming soon on the channel. For my smaller needs, if I just want to power like one freezer, then I use my BLUETTI. It's fantastic. If I want to power my whole home, including my well pump, I have 2 large ones called Mangoes. They're entire house systems. I'll link both of those below. But I do have more solar generator videos coming up of different systems to be able to choose from because, as we know, they can get pretty expensive. And you want to make sure you get one that actually works for your needs. They're very versatile, but you want to make sure you be able to use it. Of course, it's free power from the sun. Now, if you have like a gas or propane generator, which I have one of those too, I have a whole house outside gas generator. Depending on the situation, you starting that generator will alert neighbors. No, neighbors are fine. Will alert these people coming through that, hey, there's somebody at your house. So keep that in mind. At the very least, have it so you can have a solar generator in emergencies, keep your furnace going possibly. And if there's nothing going on outside, at least you could use your gas one. But you need to have some kind of alternate power, at least to keep warm and keep your stuff frozen. And number 7, lastly, specialized items. Now, I put this category in for a reason. We're talking about nuclear, biological, chemical, radiological. These, of course, are some things that terrorism does use and we need to be ready for. So at the very least, have things like plastic sheeting, tarps that will be impervious to air and such, duct tape to be able to warden off your house or a room, whatever the case may be. I mean, some people even go really far and even putting like a decon room, which would be great, but personally, I don't have a place for that. We have it set up. If you come to your front door, it goes right into a bathroom in case that happens. But one of the things you can possibly pick up is, of course, a Geiger counter. This is my baby. I talk about it all the time. It works incredibly well, and I'll link this below too. Because the Geiger counters will tell you what areas will, of course, be hot with radiation, what areas won't be. or possibly you bring in a saba meat, you can put this next to the meat to see if it's basically nuclear. Because it's not necessarily a nuclear exchange or, some kind of nuclear war, but having like a nuclear power plant sabotaged or a dirty bomb going off, things to be able to obviously render your area radiologically hazardous, and this will tell you whether those areas, if your food's safe to eat, for example. So lots of things to think about. So here's 7 things, guys, and I can't really stress the importance of being ready for this because it's been a little too quiet in our country with all these nationals coming in, which tells me they're waiting, they're biding their time, and they're planning. And a time is going to come where literally this foreign invasion is going to start the war inside our country. I truly believe that's what's going to happen, and it's something we need to be prepared for. So go through these things, list below in the comments below if there's anything we should add to that, but make sure you're ready to protect you and your family. Thanks for watching.